Good afternoon. Whoa, there we go. All right. Yes, all right. Good to be here. Thank you all for joining us here in Chicago. I'm local and really excited to see this much attendance to our beautiful city at probably the most beautiful time of year. So really excited. My name is Kevin Goldsmith, and I lead our National Community Development Tax Credit team, as well as our Intermediaries Lending, or CDFI lending team for JPMorgan Chase. And this is really a wonderful time to be here in Chicago. This weekend is the Taste of Randolph, just a few blocks away. I think it actually starts tomorrow. So as you get out of the conference, you may want to try some of our local foods. Taste of Randolph. There's also the Gold Coast Art Festival, Rib Fest, which I think is just an homage to fathers for Father's Day. And then there's also, oddly enough, a 4-hour tour on one of the elevated trains where they're having a DJ and a disco going on. So if you run into that train by accident, don't be surprised. It's not every weekend we have that. But the first thing that I wanted to do is really thank OFN for convening here and really bringing together all of the passionate CDFI partners throughout the industry serving small businesses. Since 1860, JPMorgan Chase has helped, and sorry, I'm going to actually use this isn't just because I'm old, it's also because the lighting is really funky up here. Since 1860, JPMorgan Chase has helped make opportunity happen in Chicago by creating jobs, meeting the personal financial needs of local customers, and investing in banking, business, and housing solutions to help aid the local economy. As you might know, we have our Chase Tower over on Madison and Dearborn Street, and we're actually reinvesting in the renovation of that tower. It's over $250 million investment in the downtown core of Chicago, which we're extremely excited about. It's going to create more than 970 local jobs, local construction jobs, to really support I call it HQ2 because I'm here based local. As you know, there might be this HQ1 in New York, but the HQ2, if you will, in Chicago is where we have more than 14,000 employees in this region. In 2023 alone, we supported more than 2 million customers with savings, credit, and checking and credit card accounts, mortgages, auto loans. In addition, we helped more than 5,000 small businesses through our capital access networks. And over the last 5 years, we've provided more than $170 million in financing to CDFIs in Cook County, which is the broader Chicago area. We've committed over $6.6 million in philanthropic capital to the Entrepreneurs of Color Loan Fund to provide minority-owned small businesses and real estate projects throughout Greater Chicago. Thank you. And Entrepreneurs of Color Loan Fund, or EOCLF as we refer to it, promotes the success of small business owners serving communities of color with the help of local CDFIs. It's led by LISC Strategic Investments, and that fund includes 32 CDFIs in 10 markets across the country. And that Entrepreneurs of Color Loan Fund was actually kicked off here in the Chicago market in 2018. So really excited and proud of that partnership. Small businesses play a crucial role in every local economy, driving job creation and generating wealth for business owners and their families. We help business owners overcome major obstacles through access to capital, connections, and customers. From simple banking needs like checking, savings, and credit cards to more complex needs like payment solutions, lending, and cash management services. JPMorgan Chase has made a significant investment in our CDFI network partners. We provide traditional financing, depository products, resources, and expertise, as well as philanthropic capital, including grants and flexible loan products, to help CDFIs lend to small businesses and fund community development projects in their local communities. The firm has also established an expansive network of business bankers and senior business consultants. Our business consultants and business bankers make it easier to access the capital and connections and other critical resources needed for small businesses to grow in their community. And partnering with OFN, I couldn't be more proud and excited about the continued partnership we have with Opportunity Finance Network. We believe the strength of our business is linked to the vitality of our communities and our CDFI partners. Our investments in the people and places we serve have reinforced that our business is stronger when opportunity is more equitable and accessible. Our long-term investment in OFN is one example. Between 2013 and 2014, the Opportunity Finance Network, we provided the Opportunity Finance Network with a capacity building grant to support stronger collaboration across CDFIs. And nearly a decade later, in total, we've committed close to $25 million in philanthropic capital and senior and subordinate debt to OFN, which helps local CDFIs, thank you, which helps local CDFIs address longstanding disinvestment issues, address the racial wealth gap, and persistent poverty nationwide. So also, it's a very exciting time, and I wanted to congratulate OFN on being selected as the largest Clean Communities Investment Act, or CCIA, awardee under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Congratulations. Receiving nearly $2.3 billion to support the CDFI and Community Lender Network, this network's commitment to delivering against the three objectives of reducing climate and air pollution, delivering benefits to low-income and disadvantaged communities, and mobilizing financing and private capital is admiring and inspiring. So we are very excited to learn more about this shortly in the panel, and how our CDFI partners and can support small businesses in accessing and leveraging the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So in closing, thank you, OFN, for hosting this conference, and thank you for hosting it here in Chicago. We're very honored and excited to be the lead sponsor this year. Thank you to all of my colleagues from JPMorgan Chase, Chike Ohaya, who will be on a panel later today, many of our corporate responsibility and impact partners, including Gwyneth Galbraith and Jasmine Padilla, who worked hand in hand in coordinating with OFN on our sponsorship and some of the conference logistics, Michelle Egan and Joe Bateman from our impact finance team, Felicia Manley from our local foundation team, and Sandra McGowan, who leads the local business banking division. And that's just a few of my colleagues that are here today. Thank you to Harold, Seth, Beth, and the entire OFN team for putting this conference together and bringing us here to share great ideas. Thank you all.
Please welcome to the stage OFN Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer Amber Kuhar-Bell and our panelists.
Hi. I think you can all hear me now, so that's great. We're already winning. I'm really excited to be here. I'm more excited than ever because I'm actually a product of a small business. My mom owned a small business in rural Northern California, and her tenacity put me through college and got me to this stage. However, I really wish she had access to Asara and Working Solutions back in the day, because I could only imagine what she could have done with a little easier access to capital. But that's why we're here, because we care, and we need to do the hard work to make our communities and our small businesses have access to this greenhouse gas reduction program. So this morning, you heard Harold say that we got to get to work. And as a good executioner, implementer. That's what we're here to do. And this panel is going to help us do that. This panel will help us learn to embrace those new strategies, to build and to get access to those small businesses to climate finance. So without further ado, I have an amazing panel here. I have Abby Tiener from the EPA. I have Whitney Mann from RMI, and Emily Wood from Coastal Enterprises to give us some insights on how to start our climate lending for small businesses. Great. So my first question is to Abby. So we've talked a lot about the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Can you baseline us and provide that overview of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, GGRF, and its primary objectives?
I'm sure. Thanks for the question. I'm Abby Tiener. I work for EPA Region 5. I work for EPA Region 5. I am the Inflation Reduction Act and Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Coordinator for the air programs in our region. I'm really happy to be here representing EPA and the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is really a historic investment in American clean energy finance. Created by President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act back in 2022, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, or GGRF, is the largest non-tax provision in the Inflation Reduction Act. It's $27 billion, which is the largest investment in climate and that our communities have seen in this country. EPA is implementing GGRF through 3 distinct but complementary competitive grant programs. The first one is a $14 billion National Clean Investment Fund. The second is the $6 billion Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. And the last is the $7 billion Solar for All program. And I'll be focusing on the National Clean Investment Fund and the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. So under the $14 billion National Clean Investment Fund, or NCIF, the selected applicants will create funds that partner with the private sector to provide accessible, affordable financing for tens of thousands of clean technology projects nationwide. The selected applicants will enable individuals, families, nonprofits, governments, small businesses, and others to access the capital that they need to deploy a diverse suite of clean technology projects, which will reduce pollution while creating jobs and accelerating progress towards energy security and lowering energy costs. And by mobilizing significant amounts of private capital, the selected applicants will ensure that every dollar of public funds generates several times more in private investment. So that was NCIF. Under the $6 billion Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, or CCIA, the selected applicants, including OFN, will create accelerators that provide funding and technical assistance to public, quasi-public, and nonprofit community lenders, including CDFIs, working in low-income and disadvantaged communities. These accelerators will enable hundreds of community lenders to finance clean technology projects in low-income and disadvantaged communities, while also mobilizing private capital and building the enduring capacity of community lenders to finance these projects for many years to come. Collectively, NCIF and CCIA will create a first-of-its-kind national network of mission-driven, community-led financial institutions that will finance and reinvest in climate and clean energy projects, especially in low-income and disadvantaged communities. They'll work together to deliver financial assistance in the form of loans, loan guarantees, and other financial assistance to deploy qualified projects in homes, businesses, and communities, reaching communities in every state and territory, as well as tribal lands. The selectees will also ensure the creation of high-quality jobs with a diverse, skilled workforce accompanies these projects. In turn, these efforts will spur market transformation and create enduring changes in the community lending ecosystem, such as reduced friction, increased capacity, access to product performance data, and reduced transaction costs that lead to greater accessibility to financing, further capital deployment, and an establishment of a pipeline of future climate and clean energy projects. Together, the NCIF, CCIA, and Solar for All programs will fulfill the GGRF objectives, which are, number 1, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other air pollutant emissions. Number 2, to provide tangible benefits to families and communities across the country, particularly low-income and disadvantaged communities. And number 3, to leverage EPA funds, mobilize private investment and capital, and multiply the funds and impact. So now I'll just give a quick overview of where we are in distributing the $27 billion in the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So 3 separate notices of funding opportunity were published last summer, followed by a very robust multi-stage review and selection process. And then at the beginning of April, EPA announced the selected applicants for the National Clean Investment Fund and for the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator Program. And then just a few weeks after that, EPA announced the selected applicants for the $7 billion Solar for All program. Over the next month or so, EPA and the selected applicants will work on finalizing the award documents so that they can officially obligate the funds, which will meet our statutory deadline of September 30th, which is laid out in the Inflation Reduction Act. Once the funds are obligated, selected applicants will be able to start drawing down on their funds and begin implementing the programs. So any entity that is interested in subgrants or partnerships should contact one or more of the selected applicants directly to learn more about what opportunities they can offer. And information about each of the selected applicants is on EPA's GGRF website, including how to contact them.
Great, thank you so much. So I want to start the conversation with Whitney. Whitney, can you help discuss, we have this great overview and we have this huge investment. What are the trends in climate finance and their relevance to CDFIs and small businesses?
Yeah, does this work? Okay, it works, great. Yes, so I think the biggest trend, or the most important trend, or high-level takeaway, is that clean energy investment is skyrocketing. There are a few examples of this. One is that it took us decades globally to get to the first $1 trillion of clean energy investment, and we will get to the second trillion of clean energy investment in only about 4 years. So I think at the end of last year, we had 1.8 trillion.
Wow.
So that's really exponential growth. Another example is what we see in the private financial sector. So of the largest financial institutions globally, over 80% of them have committed their entire portfolios to be net zero by 2050. This means that they're going to bring their lending and investing decisions in line with a world that's compatible with avoiding the worst damages from climate change. And so when I think about what that means, shifting these trillions of dollars, those companies represent nearly $120 trillion in assets, it's more than just neat programs on the side or even big funding opportunities. It's a capital reallocation that's pretty comprehensive away from fossil fuels into a clean energy economy. The other thing to note about this is that the US is at the forefront of it. So the Biden administration, through the Inflation Reduction Act, through IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, and through the CHIPS Act, they arguably passed the most ambitious set of climate policies anywhere in the world. And this looks like about $100 billion in investment into climate every year. So that's a huge down payment on the amount that we need to make to get to net zero, but it's also only a piece of what the Biden administration has enabled, because so many of their policies are designed to mobilize private capital with the programs. So heavy reliance on tax credits and on capital de-risking. So it's $100 billion annually from the federal investment, but that's meant to unleash or unlock a lot more in investment towards climate-aligned solutions. The last thing I'd note there is that so much of how the Biden administration went about designing this was with a really strong focus on building wealth in places that have been historically forgotten or overlooked or left behind. So there's a really strong emphasis on targeted investment by place, by race, and by class. And so I think that's also important when we think about how these funds will flow and what the opportunity means in the US. And so then, in terms of what that all means for community lenders and for CDFIs, the opportunity is, I think, it really just how much investment is needed in low-income communities to get to net zero by 2050. And that comes out to be around a $2 trillion need for low-income communities in the US. So that's a need and an opportunity for CDFIs to really step up and make sure that your communities where you live and where you work are not only not left behind, but also win, because it really is, I think, about winning through the clean energy transition.
So I love that question about, we heard there's so much money and so much need flowing into this industry, but as we all know, doesn't always trickle down. And so we need each and every one of you and community lenders and CDFIs to start to do that lending, because you are the capillaries of our financial institution. So I'd really like to ask Emily here, who's at Coastal, our enterprises, a CDFI, and can you share some of your experiences as a CDFI climate lender in this space, highlight some of your key projects you've financed? Like, how does this look in the real world, right?
Yeah, thanks. Oh, good, it works. My name is Emily Wood. I'm the program developer for climate justice and environmental resilience at CEI. And CEI has really been working at the intersection of community development finance and climate since its inception. Maine is inherently a natural resource-based economy. We've been working with fisheries, aquaculture, lobstermen since its inception, and we really kind of also added on solar to the picture about a decade ago. And really, this kind of type of financing is really unlocking not only a way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for our small businesses, but it's an economic choice at the end of the day. For example, we financed a solar array and solar battery storage at a flower farm, and because of increasing power outages because of storms, they were losing their inventory because they couldn't keep their greenhouse gas, or the greenhouse, not greenhouse gas, kind of up and running. So our low interest solar loan enabled them to access the financing that they wouldn't otherwise, to able to keep their inventory running all year round. And so it was an economic and environmental decision for farms like that. We also were able to finance the first cooperatively owned community solar array in Maine. So this means that majority low-income off-takers are also owners, and it's a model that we hope to see kind of continue to grow throughout Maine. And again, our financing was crucial to make that happen, but was really led by the community. So that's the kind of work that we want to continue to see grow. And really, I think also my job title is somewhat unique among CDFIs. My whole job is to focus on climate. And we really have prioritized that at CI throughout all of our avenues, through our lending, our advising, and our policy advocacy work. And my job is to kind of make sure that's seen through, and to have someone really dedicated to climate and environment within a CDFI, I think is really crucial to kind of navigate through these waters at this time.
Thank you so much. So Whitney, building on that, what are some of the best practices that the CDFIs in this room can adopt to start their climate financing or continue their climate financing and their capability?
Good question. I also realized I should introduce myself.
Oh.
Everyone else did a great job about that, and you're probably wondering what RMI is. So in case we haven't met before, I work at RMI. We are a global independent nonprofit focused on advancing a clean energy transition. Specifically work on our climate finance team, where we work on the financial industry's role in enabling that transition. So some context that might be helpful. Best practices, yes, absolutely. So one of the frameworks that we developed to support our financial institution partners who have set net zero ambition is a term called portfolio-led approach. And at its core, it's a really simple concept. It basically means when you're setting your climate strategies, when you're implementing on that strategy, and when you're reporting, it's important to first know what the climate energy transition means for you and what your role in that is. So to look across where you work, who you work with, how you work through the products and services that you offer, how you're structured, and how you're able to ultimately mobilize on implementation, so that the way that you're engaging on clean energy transition is really tailored to what you can do best, the tools and products that you've offered previously, and the relationships that you have in communities. So I think there's a strong parallel there for community lenders, and it sounds like it really is the approach that CEI Maine is also taking, which I think is excellent. And the reason that I think first, when I think about from the CDFI perspective, it's easy to see the green opportunity, and rooftop solar comes up all the time, right? And rooftop solar is absolutely important, but you might say, I don't provide consumer loans, so rooftop solar is not relevant to me. Or I work with small businesses who don't own the building where their offices are, so rooftop solar is not relevant to me. But the reality is that there are opportunities for climate-aligned opportunities, and there are climate risks across all markets and sectors. So for instance, what if you have a borrower who is installing gas furnaces? That's now, that industry faces an existential threat. It's being replaced by more heat pumps. Or what if it's even further up the line and you work with someone who sells component parts to to installers who install gas boilers or furnaces. So there are sort of these opportunities and risks that might be smaller, or even how do the companies that you borrow to, how do their employees get to work? Are there opportunities for charging infrastructure? So really going sort of across your lines of business, across the financial and non-financial activities, and figuring out what the transition means for you is really, I think, best practice, and the only way that it can make sense.
Thank you so much. And I think it's emblematic that she didn't introduce herself, because we are so excited about getting to do the work and not talking about who we are, right?
Yeah,
no.
I could say that. We'll go with that.
But seriously, I think best practices are great. But Emily, can you talk about major hurdles? I mean, we talk about, we make a lot of mistakes to learn, but we like to learn from our mistakes, right? So can you save us some headaches and possibly tell us about the major hurdles you faced when starting your climate lending and how you overcame them?
Yeah, absolutely. So when CEI started doing the solar loans about a decade ago, the infrastructure was not there in Maine. We didn't have the policy, we didn't have enough developers. We had to navigate utilities and interconnection. So what we did was we advocated for net energy billing, and luckily it passed. We had to finance the solar developers ourselves, and luckily now there are many throughout the state. And we're still we're still dealing with interconnection, and we're kind of advocating for reforms there. But really, it's kind of, we had to build the infrastructure to then lend to it, and that may be the case for many of you. And kind of creating that infrastructure really led to us having a robust understanding and knowledge of solar in the state of Maine, because we helped to create it. And we also helped our kind of banking institutions in Maine understand what underwriting solar was, and kind of the risks and not risks associated with that, and then building that up in that kind of capacity up in Maine. So we really had to do a lot of the groundwork and finance that a lot. So yeah, that was kind of some of the very few hurdles, especially with our solar financing.
Okay, I'm going to go a little bit deeper.
Yes, please.
So now you know a hurdle. What were your strategies that have been most effective for your CDFIs in leveraging these climate finance resources and achieving these outcomes?
Yeah, so one thing that really kind of stands out to me is we really utilize the USDA REAP program, the Rural Energy for America. It can finance up to 50% of the cost of a solar array, obviously targeted towards rural regions, but that has really kind of led the way for a lot of small businesses especially to be interested in solar. So really has helped us with our pipeline in developing that interest. Also partnering with solar developers and other, not just solar, but weatherization contractors, heat pump technicians, the people that are doing the work. They know the most about what the demand is out there and kind of the technical expertise. And so partnering with those folks is really helpful when you're trying to develop a product, a financial product, or you just even learn about the space and the demand in your own community. Those are the things that I really highly recommend for CDFIs to first kind of sink their teeth into, because it's a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you. So Whitney, we talked about major hurdles, we talked about strategies. Now let's talk about opportunities. You talked about what trends there are, but what are the future opportunities and potential risk you see for CDFIs in this climate finance space, right? How can CDFIs position themselves to really capitalize on these opportunities while clearly mitigating risk, right? That's what we do.
Yeah, I think the opportunity is what I opened with about just how much capital is being made available, concessional capital, flexible capital through programs like GGRF and other federal, state, local incentives, but also just the movement of private capital towards investment in clean energy technology. So to the degree that this can be a way to do the community development work that you're already doing better, that feels like a huge opportunity to me. There are a lot of challenges, and I think the one sort of tension that I've been thinking about recently is that CDFIs are your experts at finding different capital sources and braiding them and stacking that together in a very savvy way so that it works for your communities. But the capital can't come with, it has to be worth it, right? If the transaction costs or operating expenses that come with these green dollars are too high, then that may not feel worth it to you all, because there will be real costs associated with upskilling your team and making sure that your communities understand the benefits associated with different types of green products, or the reporting and compliance efforts. But I think the way to manage that and overcome that is by starting now and really thinking through early, what does this opportunity look like for me? Identifying what your priorities are and what your needs are, because the products are being built now that are meant to help everyone else in this community do better faster. The infrastructure and market delivery mechanisms are being built. So making sure that those are built in a way that will address your needs and serve your priorities. In order to do that, I think it starts by knowing today or soon what you'll need so that you can voice that and make sure that the solutions are ultimately there in a way that benefit you.
Thanks. So, Abby, I'm going to come back to you. You gave us an overview, and then you heard about how the trends and how we're thinking about it and how CDFIs are implementing and some of the challenges. Can you bring us back to GGRF? Can you talk about the long-term vision for EPA, for GGRF, and how you see evolving to better support CDFIs and their communities?
Sure. So the GGRF operates with the goal of mobilizing financing to address the climate crisis, ensure the country's economic competitiveness, and promote energy resilience, all while delivering lower energy costs and economic revitalization to communities that really have historically been left behind. So as I mentioned, the NCIF and the CCIA selectees will work together to create a national network. They'll complement each other to maximize coverage across project types, market segments, geographies, program partners, including CDFIs that could receive funding under these historic programs. To date, the GGRF awardees have already supported thousands of individuals, small businesses, community organizations in accessing tens of billions of dollars in capital for climate and community-based projects, which is really amazing. The GGRF was designed and is being implemented to continue this trajectory. So the idea is that it will grow institutional capacity and infrastructure, and then thereby create lasting changes in the lending ecosystem to support community networks for many years.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open it up to everyone. We are a panel representing CDFIs and think tanks and support agencies in the government. So how can CDFIs, government agencies, and these climate finance experts collaborate to maximize the impact of climate finance for small business?
I want to just add another point to strategies because
Yes.
I think it's important, and then I'll get to your question, I promise.
Love it.
But one other thing, and Whitney, you reminded me of this when you were chatting, is it's not only important to assess kind of your needs, but there's a way for you to assess your community's needs in all of this. There's so many options when it comes to kind of climate financing. But what we do at CI is for every loan applicant that comes in, I have a conversation with them and ask them, what are your sustainability priorities? What are you currently doing? What do you want to be doing? What are some gaps that we can help fill? And so when you're developing your climate financing product, you're doing it with the kind of community input in mind, so you can prioritize that, and you're really speaking to the needs of your community that you're already serving. I think that's also a really crucial piece, because ultimately this whole kind of program and all that we do is to serve the community, and you just want to make sure that you're doing that, and that's kind of one way to prioritize the financing. Okay, then now to the collaboration question. I think that the navigating the waters of all that is available out there in terms of when we're thinking about the end users, so the small businesses in our case, is going to be really complicated. So working together to develop ways to really get the education out there is going to be really crucial. Also, we're all going to be needing to ramp up what we're doing given this exciting GGRF opportunity. And so supporting CDFIs from the think tanks, from the government institutions in this ramp up phase, I think is going to be really crucial.
Yeah, echo all that. Coordination and collaboration seems like it's such an important part of so much of the delivery. When I think about what it means specifically for maximizing benefit in the communities where you live and work, I think there are even more stakeholders to add to the list. So yes, everyone you named, but also groups like economic development organizations, your borrowers, like you were just saying, your clients themselves, community benefit organizations, utilities. And one risk that I think we also face sort of collectively is that this funding from GGRF, for instance, or other incentives will flow, finally reach our balance sheets, reach your balance sheets, and some things will be easier than others. It will be easier to be reactionary than strategic about how to maximize the benefit of those dollars for local community impact. And local community impact is going to look very different in different places. And so I think the role that collaboration can play is by bringing together the different stakeholders in a region to figure out what does the opportunity look like for us? How does this align with our broader economic development goals? Where do we have competitive advantages as a region that we can transition more easily and take advantage of the clean energy opportunities? Where do we maybe face constraints related to some things that you, CEI, may even experienced, permitting, regulations, lack of workforce? What do those constraints look like? How can we use financing and these tools to overcome them? And then also collaboration as well. So then who are the different delivery partners to make sure that we're overcoming the barriers and leaning into and capitalizing on our competitive advantages? So we're actually kickstarting some analysis in the Twin Cities and in New Orleans to think through what do those competitiveness, constraints, collaboration spaces look like in those places to take most advantage of GGRF dollars for community development. And I think it would certainly be it will put to test bringing together all of those voices and how do we bring everyone into alignment on a strategy and direction of change.
And I'll say, just like Emily said, it can be really difficult to navigate. There's a lot going on right now, a lot out there. One thing that is helpful for GGRF at least is that all the selected applicants' program plans are available, including OFNs. They're on the EPA GGRF website, which is epa.gov/GGRF. So they'll provide a sense of where selectees plan to focus, both geographically and then by sector and project type. So small businesses, individuals, households that have projects that need funding can see which selectees would be good to reach out to and can fund the kinds of projects that they're in their locations.
Thank you so much. So as we wrap up this panel, I'm going to ask the whole panel to say, what is one piece or a few pieces of advice that you want to give to CDFIs that are new to climate finance, and how to get started, right? Harold said we have to do the work, and we got to do it in new ways. So how do we do that?
I can go ahead, but do you want to?
Sure, I'll start. I just wanted to say that it's important to recognize that this is a really unprecedented time for climate action, and so GGRF will be transformational, and it's really important to take advantage of those resources now. Also, don't be afraid to ask questions. Feel free to use EPA as a resource. There's an office of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and then there's the regional offices, like Region 5 here in Chicago.
Yeah, in addition to what I was saying about figuring out what the transition means for you and then getting started and also underscoring the points on collaboration that I think are so important, I would say it's important to recognize that this really is a comprehensive transition, and it really is a transformation. And so what's coming to mind is we had pulled together, our team pulled together a group of larger commercial banks when they were thinking about setting their net zero targets, net zero by 2050 climate targets, and asked them, how does this moment for climate finance feel different to you than other types of green lending you've done? ESG lending has been around, ESG investing has been around for a while. Now you have these targets. How does this feel different? And the answer was that one participant said it likened it to a change in the DNA of their institution. And I think that's how I would recommend that you sort of have to think about it, that it's not just the opportunity for solar loans on the margins, but it's across your business lines, across the products that you offer. Climate risk is real, the climate opportunity is real, the energy transition is real, and that sort of change in the DNA of it has to run through almost all types of products and business lines is the advice I would give.
I think one thing is to look at your portfolio of loans and see what you've done, because maybe some of it will actually be aligned with what's eligible under GGRF. You probably have already done one probably eligible loan at one point, and kind of building on that. I don't think it's going to be completely new. Obviously, there's a lot of component parts, but really you all know how to underwrite a loan and find your clients and customers and do the advising. It's just adding this climate piece to it. So I think there are obviously resources out there, and I'm happy to be one of them, but really it's finding kind of the need in your community, as I said, and the rest of it is kind of, you've done component parts of it before. So I think that should be a sigh of relief for everyone, that it's not going to be completely brand new. But also, that's an opportunity to think big. You can have expanded capital, and that's maybe to reduce the loan interest rate and really serve the needs that this momentous occasion is meaning to serve. And so I also kind of encourage you to think bigger. And also, as Whitney said, kind of this is not only an opportunity to respond to GGRF, but to weave in climate in all parts of your organization and what you're doing. How do we advise businesses on climate risk and respond to climate disasters? How do we incorporate climate risk into our lending? How do we advocate for climate policies in our communities that we live in? And I think this is not an opportunity not only to on the lending scale, but throughout the entire organization to really bring climate into the focus. So I think that there's a way for everyone to get started, and it can be small, but this is the time to think big, so it's exciting.
Well, thank you so much to our panelists. I'm really, really excited to be here, like I mentioned. This is the time where we have great risk, and yet now we have great support. I mean, think of all the years that we've been trying to do this work without having the financial support to get it done. Now we have capital, and through CCIA grant capital coming to your balance sheets to really help you do the work. So I really am excited about continuing all the conversations, because we are ready to do this. As an industry, we've built new things before, and we're going to continue to build now. So thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for helping us get jump started to do the work. So thank you so much.